Yesterday, there was an interesting article put out by Bleacher Report about possible trade candidates for the Lions.
Okay.
And this is a guy who has been, when I saw it, I was like, again? Like, we're starting these rumors again? So, JB, will you go ahead and will you read off who the player is, please?
I think it's pretty obvious.
I mean, it's probably pretty obvious if you don't know already. But one Mr. Trey Hendrickson, edge from the Cincinnati Bengals. Potential suitors, the Detroit Lions and the Indianapolis Colts.
The only two teams?
Yep.
Wow. I mean, the Lions are going to continue to be in this talks because there appears to be, a spot at edge that could be filled, and the Lions, they have everything in order to facilitate a move like that. They have the cap space, they have the draft capital. They could make a move like this if they really wanted to, but the biggest question is, if you were to do that, do you sign him long term? And I think that's probably the biggest hang up in this whole thing. And we know Brad Holmes has called around about, Myles Garrett. I would assume he's called about Trey Hendrickson as well at this point. So maybe the ground workings for a deal is there, but I don't think they need to make a move like this. Can you make a move like this? Absolutely. But I don't think it's like, do or die if you don't make a move like this, because you do have to take into account you are trying to sign some of your guys that are homegrown long term, and you got a lot more contracts to go. You were able to knock Kirby out. That's cool. He's one of the best safeties in the league. Thankfully, you get to keep him in-house. You got 4 of your major pillars signed to big deals, and you still have to pay Hutch. You still have to maybe decide on a Brian Branch, a J-Mo down the line, Jahmyr Gibbs. So you want to, have some flexibility and be able to do that.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that when it comes to Trey Hendrickson, I don't think this is a move you explore until the Bengals are out of the postseason.
Yeah.
Because I think everyone in this room expects a Bengals regression. It's been on the table for years, and they still didn't address their biggest need, which is offensive line. And until they do so, they're just going to continue to falter and be the worst team in that. Oh, the Browns, but
yeah,
they won't be able to compete with the Steelers and the Ravens for the top of that division. It's a tough division, too. I think the best case scenario for you, because I don't think he's going to do it in the offseason. I really don't. I think that he is very comfortable right now with Marcus Davenport as his opposite edge, as we've talked about the last couple weeks. But
Jersey bet.
When it comes to
stop it, JB.
In-season trades, that's where the contract for next year isn't going to come into play.
Right.
Like, the Bengals are going to need to move him. They're not going to have a choice if they're not in the playoffs.
Yeah.
They'd be losing him for nothing in the offseason.
Yeah.
So I would personally like to wait, stay put, see what Marcus Davenport has, because they obviously have some undying faith towards him. And so I will give them the benefit of the doubt for their track record. But if something does happen, I'm certainly confident that they will make a move like this to fill that need to try to go win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, and you got to think that's the game plan right now, because I don't really see Brad Holmes going out to try to make this move before the season, although, it would be helpful if he can have a camp with the team. But ultimately, I think you want to see what you have at this edge position. Like you said, they're going to put trust in Marcus Davenport again. So if that ends up biting you, especially early in the season, you may have to make a move like this, because you only have Al-Qaeda Muhammad, who played well in the spots that he played last year. Shout out to him. But you have Al-Qaeda Muhammad, you have Ahmad Hassanin. I used to say it right now. I'm fucking it up. Ahmad Hassanin. There it is. Ahmad Hassanin. You have him as well, and they may expect some bigger things from him in year one. We don't know just yet. So going forward, I think that you just want to play your cards and see what you have. And then if you're in a tight position or you got injuries piling up, that way you might go make that move at that time.
Yeah, I completely agree. And especially when it's in season, you're not going to have to give up as much value in terms of the trade. You're looking at second-round pick at the highest. Like, you're not even going to get into first-round pick territory because it's a rental. I'd honestly expect it to be a third-round pick. So I think that at that value, and if you're really trying to go for it, I'm all for it.
No, and shout out to IT Hips in the chat. That's not a good game plan, guys. He said it was hell trying to acquire Big Z last year. We don't need to go through that again. And much to what you said, Justin, I feel like the Cincinnati Bengals are in a tight spot, and they kind of know it because they went out and they paid all of their offense. And you got to give them credit because I didn't even think they would be able to keep all of their receivers, but they were able to do that. But at that point, you sacrificed your defense, and we all know defense is a big problem with this Bengals team. So if they're in a spot to where they're struggling to get wins, but they're still trying to push for the postseason, you got to think that they are, just because of, you know, how some of their contracts are laid out. And you do have Joe Burrow. You can't just keep wasting him. They're trying to win. If they get in that tight spot and they got to make a move, they got to do that because in the offseason, they are going to need to restack that defense in order to keep trying to win now. They might be in a tighter spot than even the Cleveland Browns were last year when they had to pretty much trade Zadarius Smith, although they were asking for a third-round pick all the way up until the trade deadline.
Yeah, I agree. And the fact is, even a third-round pick is so valuable to these GMs, especially when you're trying to rebuild and you're trying to just bring in a high quality of players to start your retool or your rebuild.
Right.
Like, we're talking about getting guys who could have really upgraded their offensive line with a third round draft pick, and that's what they need to do to protect Joe Burrow. So I'm very curious how this, all shakes out. We got to see what Davenport looks like, because it seems like they're not making a move until they see what Davenport looks like.
Right.
Because why would they not have already signed Zadarius?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And that's another factor. If they aren't signing Zadarius Smith, at least not to this point, you got to think that they feel like they're pretty set at the edge position. And they could be right. If you get a healthy Marcus Davenport, once again, everything that you say about him is not on-field related. It's strictly about the injuries. And understandably so. It's just been his history throughout his career. But if you can get, like I said, at least 12 to 13 games at the very least, I think this team will be in a damn good position to achieve everything they want to achieve this year.
I completely agree. JB, Chase, how are we feeling about Trey Henderson move?
I mean, I would like it personally, and I agree with you, Justin. I think you're probably going to wait until the Bengals are either out of the playoff or until it gets close to that trade deadline, because I think Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell still want to see what they have. And as you said, Davenport, Muhammad, Hassan, and figure out, where to go from there. But honestly, this is the Bengals' fault as well, too. They did draft Shamar Stewart in the draft, but also they're the ones being super unreasonable with this price that they want for Trey Henderson. I don't know what it is exactly, but I'm assuming it's somewhere around, 2 firsts for this man right now. But hopefully they come down off of that price once the Bengals do get eliminated, because I think they really just want to restock and do everything they can to, one, protect Joe Burrow and help establish this defensive side that they have as it is. So it's just a waiting game right now. You're just going to have to wait and see.
I can tell you what, if their GM called me and told me, give me 2 firsts and you can negotiate a contract with Henderson for an extension.
Right.
I'd tell you, go kick some rocks.
Right.
I say, I don't want him to sign an extension. I want him to come here on a 1-year deal. I want to be able to trade a third-round pick for him. Screw
right,
first.
right.
And I think that's what every GM around the NFL is looking. Like, none of them are desperate right now. They just had free agency. Most of them filled their needs.
Yep, in the draft, yep.
And even if it does start to slip in the first couple weeks of the season, the price is already going to start going down.
Yeah.
Because he's already played games on the contract.
Exactly.
Like, if the contract's not done by the beginning of the season, it's probably not going to get done.
No, that value is absolutely going down the closer we get to the trade deadline and he isn't moved. So, and shout out to Anthony Patterson in the chat. You should be able to have Davenport figured out prior to the start of the season, Justin. Training camp and practice, put the pressure on him. And do you think that's a good strategy? Maybe try to work him a little harder in training camp, trying to see if he can hold up. I don't think if he were to get injured, it'll probably be in the season. I don't think in training camp you'll have too many issues, because you're not really trying to push your guys too hard in training camp. Yes, you want to get them up to game speed, but you also want to come into the season healthy. So I don't know if that's the best strategy, but what do you think about that? I'm
not worried about him in training camp, but I am worried as soon as he steps on the
field.
Right. And And so
you would like to have him figured out in training camp, Anthony
100%.
Patterson. I mean, yeah, I'm not to call you out or anything, but yeah, that would be the game plan to kind of see, oh, okay, he's gonna be good, or oh, damn, we got a problem. He doesn't look like himself. It would be nice to figure that out in training camp, but he's familiar with the system. He's gonna fit in. If he's healthy, he should be good throughout camp. But it's just about what's gonna happen once he laces up in that regular season.
Yeah, I completely agree. Chase, how are you feeling about Trey Hendrickson?
I mean, I don't think it's a move we necessarily need to make. I don't think it's something that like guarantees you a Super Bowl just because you make that move. And I think the cost of that type of trade is pretty expensive. I think there's another player that you could get to play that same position for this team at a significantly less or cheaper cost, and be, I would say, like similarly, and also get similar production out of it, especially with Hutch on the other end, who's going to be your primary edge rusher, and then the mix of Ali McNeil when he's healthy, Tyleek Williams, DJ Reader, Roy Lopez mixing up in the middle. They're going to have a lot of bodies to take care of and try to deal with. So whoever, I don't think you necessarily need someone with as big of a name as Trey Hendrickson on the other side of Aiden Hutchinson to be as productive as they can be.
True, but it could be a win now type of move. Let's say the Lions are in a good position and you want to just make that move to put you over the top. I wouldn't be mad at that, because at that point I would feel like it is just a rental and maybe you're not trying to sign him long term, but it's just about, do you want to give up that draft capital? We saw how this fan base acted about giving up the draft capital for Tesla. Like, if you don't sign Trey long term and you don't win the Super Bowl, then I feel like you're going to get an uproar from the fan base, unfortunately.
So what are you willing to gamble to get Trey Hendrickson for 1 year?
If you get him at the trade deadline, I feel like a second rounder is out of the question at that point. If you have a 2027 third, I'll see what's popping with that, and I'll add something to it. I'll give you maybe like a fifth to go with that. And a recent draft or next year's draft, and we'll see if you can do it with that. If not, I may come back to the table and try to figure it out. But overall, I don't think the Lions will be desperate. Unless they have the injury situation that they had last year, I don't think the Lions will be in a desperate position at edge to do anything. So hopefully it's one of those situations to where you just keep it in the back pocket and hope you never have to use it. Yeah,
I agree. I think that the max I could see them giving up is a third and a fourth, or 2/3. I don't think they go into the realm of a second round pick.
Yeah,
not at this point. They love those second round picks way too much.
Yeah, and the Bengals kind of blew their chance, because I felt like they could have maybe got a first for him if they had to just went ahead and traded him this offseason. 100%. But it just didn't happen, and they want to try and make a run at this thing. I do understand you do have a superstar quarterback back there, and if they don't get it done within these next couple years, it's going to end badly in Cincinnati. Like, it's already trending towards that direction for them. So they're trying to pull out all the stops. I can't necessarily be mad at that, but they need to be smart and start looking out for draft capital, because that's going to be the only way you're going to rebuild this team. Free agency, you are locked up. Like, contract wise, you are spending a lot of money on a lot of guys offensively. So,
well, nobody is mad at you guys right now. Shout out to everyone sitting in super chats. He sent in $5. He said, y'all need to give up on Marcus Davenport. Dude can't stay healthy ever. Davin Bros, how do you even exist? Are you serious? Dude is playing 3 games at the most. Shaking my head.
Well, once again, I don't feel like we Davenbroing up here. Like, if it were up to, I'm sure, all of us in this room, we wouldn't necessarily want Marcus Davenport.
I think all of us would sign Zadarius Smith right now.
Exactly. Like, we all know what the story is on him, but I try to also humanize him, because I was more in that bandwagon last year. You signed this guy with an injury history. You kind of knew to expect this, and it happened. But you do have to put the human behind the name. And once I saw his press conference over this, off season, you kind of feel bad for the guy, because he doesn't want to go out there and get hurt. He knows that's the narrative around his whole career, and you can tell that he's feeling that shit. He gets to see the fucking, social media posts tearing him apart. He watches shows like this, I'm sure. It's fucked up, but he does have to beat the allegations. It's a part of the game, and you have to get past that at some point.
Yeah, you do. And I think that where they are losing the Davenbro idea and why we're getting thrown that at us is because of the fact that we keep saying that Brad Holmes is comfortable with it.
Right.
which is not us. I never said that I was comfortable with it. But who am I to question Brad Holmes?
There you go.
If Brad Holmes feels like he can get a healthy season out of Marcus Davenport, who the hell am I to question it?
And when you just look at the moves, it does make sense because the interior of this defensive line is built in such a way to where you can afford to have, you know, Aiden Hutchinson on one side and kind of like you know, maybe tier 3 or tier 4 guy on the other side of him, because you're going to be generating pressure from the middle and you have one of the premier pass rushers in this league. So it can work. We saw James Houston come in here who was absolutely challenged in a lot of ways. He came in here and put up high sack numbers in 1 year. So Marcus Davenport can do the same. And in a very, very small sample size, we did see him perform on the field. He did look good next to Hutch. So I can't blame Brad Holmes for thinking, okay, if we can just stay healthy across the board as a defense, we'll be okay. We'll be better for it. And maybe Marcus Davenport can stay healthy.
And I'm being told by Anthony Peterson, that's a trap right there.
Shout out Anthony Peterson, man.
I mean, I'm not about to be in the business to question Brad Holmes. I just,
you can't at this point.
No.
But if it does not work, then it's a double-edged sword. Brad Holmes does have to wear that. That's why, as a fan, you shouldn't freak out. You know, I do understand we want certain things in this town. I understand we are closer to a Super Bowl than we have ever been. But at the same time, you have to be patient. And if it doesn't work, then at that point, you can criticize. We are well within our window still right now. The Lions are in the prime of their window. So I'm not going to freak out about things like this. Maybe a couple years down the line, if it doesn't work, we can reapproach it. But as of right now, you got to ride the wave, man. You got to ride the wave.
There's no doubt about that.
They were a 15-win team last year.
Yeah. And we got to continue riding the wave into break. So, JB, who we got to say what up to?
Elite.
Lady Jane's.
Lady Jane's.
You should be the sponsor for Lady Jane's.
Look at that hair. I am the sponsor for Lady Jane's.
Look at that hair,
actually.
man. Second best hair on the network.
You got better hair than me. Whoa. That's disrespectful.
You're giving yourself third, KG?
No, not at all.
I'm first.
I would challenge to say I'm first, man. This is years of experience.
See, it's tough because it's hard to compare.
I mean, it is what it is. But you guys have a great
We need a mixed panel.
We do. I think most people will probably vote for Chase, though. I think people like Chase's hair better. You kind of got like that soap opera type shit, like
the soap opera.
Yeah, like the All My Children cut. That's what you got, man. You got it's wavy. You look like you gazing into a woman's eyes every time that you talk. Chase,
All My Children.
He has versatile hair. Sometimes it's curly, sometimes it's straight.
Chase's hair is really
sometimes it's in braids.
Like the braids are sick. I gotta say,
he's versatile.
When he walked in with the braids for the first time, I was so like confused, but I was like, damn, that looks so.
He's
good.
a Brad Holmes guy. He's very versatile.